Okay, Angelie, welcome to the podcast. Normally I have everybody do their own intro, but we're going to change things up a little bit. I read your bio that you sent in, and you are from upstate New York originally, which I am too, so I want to get into that.
Oh.
And, I don't know about upstate, but you're from New York.
Yep, upstate. You're
Okay.
right.
And you were a law enforcement officer,
Yep.
and you made it to detective.
Yep.
And then you got out, and now you're helping law enforcement on the organization kind of private side.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so,
Spot on.
and you're a proud mom,
I am so proud.
which is the greatest title that
Yes.
anybody can ever
so
hold.
honorable.
So
Yes.
it's great when you, I give my wife so much credit because being a good mom along with a good dad, I think is one of the hardest things when you absolutely care. And in your bio, I mean, there's not a lot of people that mention, like as accomplishment, which is
Yeah.
motherhood, which is an incredible thing. So, all right, let's jump into it. So where are you from?
I'm from upstate New York.
Where at?
So I was born in Rochester, New York.
Got it.
So not upstate, but my family all lives up in North Bangor, Malone, just a few minutes from the border.
I'm from Thousand Island, so literally Clayton, New York is
Okay.
like 5-minute boat ride, and you're in Canada. So.
Okay, yeah. That's
Yep,
awesome.
that's where I grew up.
Yeah.
So you ended up moving out here at kind of a younger age, correct?
I did, yeah. So my father got a job with Hewlett Packard when I was 9.
Got it.
And then since then I love it here.
You're an Idahoan.
Yeah.
You're an Idahoan.
Yep.
So growing up here, and then it's not much of a huge culture shock difference between. I mean,
There's a lot nicer people here
for sure.
compared to back east.
For sure, we're a little bit more
Unfiltered.
quick. Yeah, to the point.
Yeah.
You know how people are
We
feeling.
don't take it personal.
No,
Yeah, a little
that's
bit.
the East Coast, the Northeast way,
Yeah.
for sure. I go home and I'm like, God, my wife being, born and raised SoCal, whenever I bring her back up, she's like, people here are different. I'm like, they are.
They
They'll
are.
let you know what people are thinking for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the dryness, the humidity back east. I was over that. So, and it's just simple life here, so.
The humidity is one of those things if you've never experienced a hot, humid, there's Texas humidity. There's East Coast. Nothing beats the South, but.
Oh, yeah.
And then people don't realize how hot and humid it gets in the Northeast.
Oh,
In
yeah.
the summertime, and that is just.
You take a shower and then you're dry and then you go back out and you're like,
You're
oh.
wet all day. So you get here, you go through high school. What was high school like transitioning from Northeast to Idaho?
So, the obvious is education's way different, right? From New York, top of the line education versus here, we're like the 49th worst state for education. So
Yeah.
it's quite apparent. But, honestly, I think just the transition for my family in a whole, I couldn't find friends. We were a big hockey family. We all played hockey.
Hockey is life in the Northeast.
Hockey's life, yep. And it's like football here. So my brothers played travel team and the high school, but it was just really hard to find friends in transition. I would say high school was the best years of my life and the worst at the same time.
Why the worst?
The bullying,
Really?
the peer pressure, the drugs,
What town did you grow up in?
what town? I went to Eagle.
Okay, so you're
Yeah.
right here.
Yep, right here, local. We had suicides, we had fatal car crashes with kids, we had overdoses.
Really?
It was pretty crazy time. But that's where I met my husband too. So
Are you guys high school sweethearts?
We are.
Really good
yeah.
for you.
Yeah, he was one of my bullies and picked on me. So yeah,
No.
and then he cheated off me in math. So shout out to my math teacher.
So your husband started as a hater,
Started as a hater.
and then you helped him do his homework, and then you guys got close, and one thing led to another.
Yeah.
And here you are. How
Yeah.
many years now?
20 years.
Married or together?
Married for 11 years, together for
Good
20.
for you. He had commitment issues at first time. Then I did the same thing, so that's why I could
Wow.
talk.
He was a firefighter first, and then he got right. So
Yeah. Yeah, military, law enforcement, firefighters, we're all the same.
right.
It takes us some time to come around and wake up and realize when we have a good one. So that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. Where was he at as a firefighter?
He was an Eagle.
Okay.
Yep, they had a volunteer program, and he started right when he was 17 and loved it. That was our family, and did that for about 5 years, and he knew he wanted to do more. So he saw a situation of a cop handling a a suicidal kid, and it didn't go the way that he agreed. And he was like, I want to be that. I want to change
Really?
kids' lives and make a difference. So that was, and during that time, I worked at the state police as a dispatcher. And so he's like, I want to go on a ride along, and fell in love with it after that.
So he became a cop after this?
Yep, he became a state trooper.
Really? Is he still doing it now?
Yeah, he's
That's
a
awesome.
sergeant there.
We're
Yeah.
going to have a chat with him.
Yeah, definitely.
So you guys meet, and he becomes firefighter, and you go what, off to college?
Yep, I went to Boise State.
Okay.
And then I dispatched too for the state police right before I turned 21.
So did you get into that while he was going through, or were you dispatched before he jumped onto the law enforcement side?
Yeah, I was.
Really?
Yep.
So how'd you like get into dispatch?
I loved it. I loved the multitasking. I love the adrenaline rush.
Because you don't know what every phone call is something different, right?
Yeah. It's wild.
Really?
It's wild, yeah.
So there's never a dull. You're not like at work like twiddling your finger. I mean, is it
No.
always just nonstop as a
Yeah,
dispatch?
you have several different radios going off in your ears. You have phone calls. You could have 911 calls. You have, your troopers could be in a pursuit. There's just, it's crazy. It could really go chaotic within seconds. And so your fight or flight, you're always on that fight.
Is there a story that sticks out that you got a phone call? What's the one that comes to your head when you think of dispatch and all the time doing it?
There's one I remember. So here at the state police locally here in Meridian, the dispatch center dispatches from Reagan's down all the way to the Nevada border.
Really?
From Ontario all the way to Wyoming, Montana,
So it's
Utah.
a huge.
So we dispatch for the whole lower south portion of Idaho.
Wow.
And so there's 4 different stations, but there's more dispatchers. Anyways, I was dispatching for the Pocatello area. And I remember it was in the winter, and I got a call from this passenger in the car. He called and said they hit a moose, and his driver has been knocked out. They hit 2 moose, and the driver was passed out, and he was trying to control the car. And he didn't know where he was at. And so while they're still cruising on the highway, I'm trying to ask him for landmarks and just signs or whatever he sees. And I can't remember the exact location today, but I remember I was able to get him off the freeway, took an off ramp, and I told him to hold his driver's neck, C-spine, and just let me know when he hears cops go back and forth, and I can try to hear on the phone too, because I could tell it was on speaker when we were getting closer and closer, and then I was dispatching my troops to that. But it was pretty wild too, because you can't see anything, right? You can't see what's going on like the troopers do. So I am like a pretty vivid,
For sure.
like photographic memory type of gal, and I can just picture all of this. And that was like my most vivid, like I just stayed with him the whole time until they got there. It was, not the fastest response,
I can imagine.
but we got there and helped them, and they survived, which was great. So
I mean, I feel like taking out 2 mooses.
yeah, it's rough.
I mean,
One alone could do some work to your car,
sure.
let alone 2. Yeah.
I mean, I have some buddies in Alaska, and they send me pictures every year of cars that are just, I mean, it's almost like they're ripped, like flattened right down the middle of them. I mean,
Yeah. And the passenger told me he was asleep when it happened. So that's how he woke up and saw that his driver was out.
and
Yeah.
he starts just driving.
Just trying to control the car, and
And has no idea where he's at. Could
Yeah.
you imagine that scenario? You just wake up and
it's got to be
your
terrifying.
car's just destroyed and
Yeah.
your buddy's passed out at the wheel.
I could imagine not knowing is my passenger dead? Are they alive? Like, what's happening? Like, are they breathing? What's happening?
So I feel like dispatch is one of those jobs I would put in, correct me if I'm wrong, I would put up there with like air traffic control, because I think there's some shows like spin-off of cop shows, but it's just the dispatch ladies like all sitting in a call center. But I mean, you guys are running such a huge region.
Yeah.
And there's so much shit that goes on
Yeah.
everywhere all the time.
All the time.
I mean, you're just.
It is. It's
how
like
do you
an
keep
air
track of that?
they're just the best multitaskers you can ever meet. I mean, there is, yeah,
They have to be.
they have to be. They're really proficient in communicating with the troopers, and they have those troopers' numbers memorized, how to say it. They have their voices memorized. So if that trooper doesn't say his number, they know who it is by the voice. Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty intimate job because you're talking to these guys and girls every day.
Yep.
You're hearing their voices.
Yep.
And do you guys hang out, or do you get to know the cops on a personal level, or is it just, are these people that you've never really ever get to see?
You really don't get to meet them much. I mean,
Really?
here at Meridian, you get to meet the district guys here, but yeah, you don't get to meet.
So you could have full on, like, when I say relationship, like knowing these people and pretty much follow their career along if you stay dispatched long enough and you've never...
You never meet them in
That's
person.
fascinating.
But they'll know you. Like if I was to meet somebody and I say I'm Angelie, they're like, oh yeah, you're... You know, either whatever their opinion was of me as a dispatcher, you're a good dispatcher, or you're
What makes a bad dispatcher? Like just slow to the response, or
slow, one that probably makes you repeat often, right? Because if you're as a cop, your adrenaline's going. Say I have a car that's failing to yield, so I'm anticipating a pursuit, and who knows how that's going to go. And so you're focusing on that car, and you have maybe your dispatcher say, "Last unit, can you re-identify?" And you're like, motherfucker, I'm right here.
right? Okay.
Listen to me. I'm right here.
yeah.
I'm clear as day. I'm the only one on the radio. So you get really frustrated because you're like really amped. You really need, that's your support, your lifeline.
For sure.
Right? You know, if I have shots
I've
fired.
never looked at it like that. That you're the lifeline for law
yeah.
enforcement officers.
Well, what people don't know is that it's for Idaho, the state police. Our jurisdiction is the entire state of Idaho, but I could be the only trooper on for hours and hours away. So like in Salmon or Chalice, there's nobody around for hours.
Yeah.
So dispatch is your lifeline. So if something goes wrong, even if you have a heart attack, which we've had troopers die because of heart attacks.
No.
Yeah.
Out in the middle of
Out
Idaho.
near Teton County, pushing cars out for over 24 hours out of the snow drifts over there. You know, it's a thing. And so dispatches are
Oh my God, I've
lifeline.
never thought about this.
And I mean, we're Idaho, so we're really remote. And so we don't have the best cell service or radio service.
Well, between pretty much here and Salmon, there's nothing. Once you get into the mountain range, I mean, you're out of service for 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah,
I mean, you
most
hit
of the
little
time.
patches here and there when you go through a town and you hit like Clayton or Chalice or whatever.
And
But
the troopers know where those like areas are where they can reach because they work it all the time. But there's times where the trooper will be like, I'm going to be out of service for the next hour. And then they'll get back on and say, hey, I stopped out with a motorist assist, or I made a traffic stop. Here's the name. And you don't know if that person's got warrants or what.
I had a cop. I was racing a cop once. I didn't know it was a cop. This was a couple years ago. This guy was riding my ass. So I'm like, no, I'm the person that you're not going to pass. So I'm like, okay, I'll just speed up. And this guy was on it. I'm like, oh, cool. This guy, perfect. I got a riding buddy, you know? I'm like,
Check this off the bucket list.
so I'm in one of the canyons and we're hauling ass. This guy's just tailing me. I'm like, cool. He wants to ride at my pace. We're going to send it. The second my phone dinged, I got service. Bing, boom, lights me up.
Oh.
And he was waiting. I knew
Waiting for the, yeah.
He was a cool guy. I mean, I was like, my bad. Like,
I thought you were somebody else.
didn't know you were a cop. Like, definitely would not have been doing 90 in like a 40. So, like, yeah. So and then I had to get out because I didn't have plates on. I still don't run plates. Like, people, it's been years. I just don't put plates on my truck. I'm one of those people. And he's like, where are your plates? I'm like, oh, they're in the back seat. And he's like, well, can you grab them? I was like, yeah, you want me to get out and grab them? He's like, yeah, I just want to check them out. And I opened my door, and during this period of like hauling ass through this canyon, like everything just flying in the back of my truck.
Oh.
I had a rifle and a pistol just roll out of my, and I'm like grabbing it. He's just standing there staring at me. He's like, you're good. Just wear your license plates. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I swear. And
Yeah.
he ended up he was a pretty cool guy. Had a really good sense of humor. So
Good.
usually if you can make him laugh, you don't get as
might-
big of a ticket
might be
or
easier.
get out of it a little bit. So I learned that the hard way. It took me years to be like, can I help? You know, like you see these videos and I'm like, oh God.
If you fully own it, that's what it comes down to, right? You know, for a citation is to teach, is to provide education, right? And it sticks because everybody knows when they get a ticket, right? It sticks in your brain. So that's what it's for. So if you own it, then you don't need a citation.
I've been pulled. I've passed a cop once where I was on my motorcycle. And this is when I learned it was in my motorcycle days because I ended up losing my license like 3 times and going to jail and getting the wildest. Yes, my wife. Like,
sure. I can only imagine.
The motorcycle days cost me a lot of money in fines and insurance and court fees. But my buddy crashed once on a mountain and I was hauling ass to get home to get my truck to get back. And it was like an hour and a half, like of a normal pace. And there was this big sweeping road and I'm doing like 130, just full lean, just
fully leaning, knee touching.
And I just by this cop. And I was like, fuck. So I stand my bike up and I just off the gas, cruise.
Pull right over.
And I pull over, put my kickstand down, take my helmet, and this guy comes flying around this bend like mile behind me.
Yeah.
And he comes flying up behind me, pulls over, and he's like, I really appreciate you pulling over. And I was like, what do you mean?
Surprised.
What do you mean? And he's like, normally you guys run. I was like, in my head, I'm like, normally I do. Like my buddy's crashed. I'm not trying to get in the same situation. He's like, I'm like, listen, man, my buddy went down hard. I just trying to get my truck. Normally I don't drive this fast.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? Just because you pulled over, I appreciate that. He's like, so slow it down. I was like, yeah, you got it. And he's like, I got a call. There's another accident I got to get to. So he took off and let me go. And I was like,
it's your lucky day.
I was like, oh, I'll just work with these guys instead of like trying to fight them, and run from them. And I mean, I still would run quite often on my motorcycle. I knew if I had like 10 seconds on them, I was out. But
motorcycles are so fast.
Scary and stupid. And yeah, I can't wait to get another one of these days. But my wife will absolutely, there's no way. So
smart woman.
She said she has watched me use 9 of my 10 lives, and I'm done. So
smart woman.
And motorcycles took about 3 or 4 of those on that count. But so dispatch, you did that for how many years?
I dispatched for about 4.5 years.
Before you transitioned?
Yeah, so I went over. So at that time, I wanted more. I was finishing college, and I had my degree in criminal justice, and I knew I just wanted to do more and be a part of more. And so I knew what my husband went through for the academy, and super jealous of him going through his academy and just the team atmosphere, the hazing he went through, the whole thing. Like, I just really wanted all of that.
Really?
And, yeah.
That's different, I feel like, as a woman's perspective on things. Like, I feel like most women would not, like, sign me up for the hazing and just getting messed with all day.
Well, and I think it probably has to do with my upbringing.
Okay.
With my family. I grew up, I have 3 other siblings.
All boys?
A sister is the oldest, 14 years apart, and then 2 brothers.
Okay.
And grew up playing hockey. Like, legit, they would take me to a hockey net and shoot pucks at me when I was like 4 years old.
Are you the baby or the middle child?
I'm the baby.
Okay, that makes sense.
So they helped me become tough and kind of, influenced me on who I am. And so I with that, and then our parents they're old school. And so my parents held the men up really high on a totem pole versus the women. The women were kind of just, stay home and clean the house and, have children. And so they believed in
traditional
boys.
role, yeah.
Yeah. And so the boys were always busy doing stuff, playing hockey. My parents thought they were going to be professional, and I'm sure they could be because they're really good, but that wasn't what they wanted. Yeah. And so I just kind of grew up with, like, I had that type of lifestyle, but I didn't agree with it. And I just wasn't ever going to take no for an answer, and find ways around and alternatives, pivot, change, like, adapt. And but I also loved, like, I think I was jealous of my brothers on their upbringing and what they were doing, and their the events they went through, and the commitment that they had for certain events in their life. And so, I met my husband, and my husband kind of opened my eyes to, like, a whole new world. And he taught me how to ski and how to drive stick shift and ride a dirt bike. And
like, there's more to me, and there's more in me than
I wanted to do everything. There was no challenge. I was a yes girl. Like, let's do everything. Let's do it all. Let's rock cliff, jump, whatever, and let's do it all. And so my husband went through that academy, and it was just super cool, just seeing all of that and being part of more and helping more. And so I knew I wanted to do something more, I just didn't know what. Yeah. And so then I went over to the district. in the district.
What's the district?
It's where patrol is, investigations.
Okay.
And I was an investigative assistant, so I helped investigations. I was like their right-hand gal for whatever they needed. And they really kind of took me under their wing. They let me go out on
What are you investigating? Like murders, burns, arson,
drugs,
everything?
Drugs, yeah, homicides, officer-involved shootings.
This is before you went through the academy and everything?
Yeah, this is before.
So you're in. Like you're already.
I was already like interested. Yeah. So in college too, I interned and also had a class with a detective. She also taught at Boise State, and she became my mentor. She's pretty badass, and so I interned with her for 200 hours, and I did.
You're like, this is it.
Cold case homicides with her. Yeah, I went on drug buys, surveillance, all kinds of stuff with them. And I was like, this is awesome. This is sweet. But I think what kind of held me back from pulling the trigger then or even before was that I would talk to like my mom about it, and she was like, no, like I don't want, you're my baby girl. I don't want you to get hurt, right? And kind of inserting fear
and doubt
and lack of confidence, right? And so
let the devil in.
Yeah, so I just didn't. And so then I became a deputy coroner for Ada County.
Which is what?
It's a coroner. So I investigated hundreds of deaths.
Are you going out to the scene or while the body's there, or are you going afterward?
Yeah, so I go,
Okay. Okay. Pause.
Okay.
Bodies.
Yes. Doesn't gross me out.
Really? The smell? The rot?
No.
The bloated?
I mean, now I think now that I'm a mom, so it's like a bit different. But before, I honestly, it's a mental thing. For me, it was like, well, I'm going out to a scene where there's a family, or maybe not. But if there's a family there, they just found their loved one dead. And so it's not about me. It's not about how I feel about the smell. It's not about what the scene looks like or if it's gross or whatever. It's about this family. And so for me, that just really laid heavy on my heart. And I wanted to help every family I could because that's a big deal. It's a
horrible time.
It's a horrible time.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
There's not like resources there to help them. You know, they're trying to navigate.
Why isn't there any? I mean,
you know, it's
like when someone dies. I mean, people don't even know what like the first step when either let's say hospice, and that's the most if they're obvious. The best case scenario, right? Where you come home and the loved one passed, right? Like you call 911.
Yeah.
In reality, that's what feel most, and then that's when you get assigned to, hey, there's a suicide, murder, whatever the case be, and then you have to go out and investigate everything.
Yeah, if it's not a natural death, like so hospice, you wouldn't call 911, or a natural hospital death, you wouldn't call 911, or call the coroner. But yeah, those unforeseen deaths that heart attack that's at the house that maybe could look suspicious, you call the coroner. Like, yeah. And I think to answer your question, I think the resources, I think everybody's situation is different.
For sure. And
so it's hard to like say, follow this list A, B, C, D. Everyone's situation's different. And so it's hard to provide that many resources.
Did you ever go to a house where the animals were eating people?
I did.
Really? What was that like? Is it? I mean, you hear because my wife, she just the freaking crime shows on 24/7. Typical woman, right? Like
you watch them with her though, I'm sure.
I don't. I can't stand them. I'm like, why do you watch this shit? She killed her husband for the $20,000 insurance policy. It's always the dumbest amount. Like I come in at the end and I'm like, how much? And she's like, 30,000. I'm like, so I guess I am involved, but I just get the cliff notes. But I hear if I hear like a cat was like chewing on somebody, I'll stop and listen to that. But like, what is that like investigating where the animals were chewing on their owners? Because they're trapped in the house, right?
Right. And it's no fault to the animal, right? No. And so, and the animal knows no difference. So they smell and they see that, and that's what they eat, especially if they don't have their food out, right? But to me, when I, entered that type of scene, I mean, it's just part of like a crime scene.
Really?
There's variables that you just like are kind of in your head of expectations, and you need to know the signs of what it looks like, when it
okay.
comes to, because it could look
Foul play,
suspicious.
okay.
Yeah. And so you have to like really look at the totality of the scene and see what's going on. But,
You've ever like looked at the cat in the corner licking itself and you're like, motherfucker just chewed this dude's face off.
I definitely didn't go and pet it. I'm going to tell you
Right,
that. I kept
right.
my distance.
Yeah, it's just looking at you and you're like, I know what you did.
Yeah.
You know what you did too.
Yeah.
Dirty
Yeah.
ass cats. I hear they're like the first thing that'll eat you is a cat. Like within hours of dying, they say the cats
Yeah.
are on you.
Yeah. Well,
They're just waiting.
I've had dogs, and I had a scene where there was a pig.
A pig?
A pig. Yeah. And those
How much of the body was eaten?
not a ton, not much, but it definitely tracked blood all over, and so it looked like a really big crime scene, like a really messy crime scene.
Did the pig go for like the belly or did it start?
I want to say more like the face. It
Really?
went towards yeah. So, yep.
I would just walk in and be like, yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm not. The smell, I could deal with bodies all day, and it's the smell.
Yeah, especially, yeah.
And then it's on your clothes, and then even when you change and wash, and you like still smell it.
Well, that is a thing, yeah. And so that's
How do you handle that?
Everything is.
Are you wearing a
shedded.
suit? Like, do you wear like a
Hazmat suit? So it depends on how bad. So I had one situation where there was a truck driver that died in his truck, and he had been there for several days in Idaho heat, 104 degrees outside, so you can only imagine what it is inside.
God.
And so he was very bloated, and his skin was peeling off, coming off. And so I was in a hazmat suit for that one, for sure, because I had to pull him out of his truck through, those little windows. So they have like the big windows, and then on the bottom of the door is a small window.
Yes.
And so there's also a door, and you can pop the door off and slide him through that.
How did you get him through that?
Well, there's a lot of bodily fluids, and the skin's,
Slipping?
yeah.
And you were like tucking and like someone's pulling? Like, how does this work? I'm trying to picture this.
I know you are, and I'm trying to save you the details.
No, I want, this is why we're here. I want the details. We're welcoming everybody to this world.
To your own, each your own.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you're that bloated and then you push on it, those gases are released, and the fluids are released, and then the skin is just kind of peeling off.
Where are the fluids released from? Any orifice, or are they just ripping? Like, is it at that point?
All of the above.
Really?
Yeah, because your skin is so swollen that it bursts open from the inside out. So.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah, at that
And you're
point.
cool, and you're just go home and like, hi, honey, today was great.
Well, after shedding layers and getting rid of some clothing, I mean, it's not about what I think or, because now someone just lost
a loved one,
and I have to go tell them too, because
That's your job as well?
oh yeah,
And you signed up for this.
yeah.
Good for you.
It's the coroner's job to investigate the death, also, and determine the cause of death, but also notify the next of kin. So that's all in the one. Sometimes I'd get state calls to go and notify a family, and not the easiest, but I do believe that loved ones should be provided that next of kin, the details in the utmost professional manner
100%.
and respectful manner. And so, and I think of that very passionately. And I think that's what drove me into, so that I did that for a year, and I knew I wanted more again. And so I wanted,
Wasn't enough, huh?
wasn't enough. And so I wanted to investigate crimes and help, families that maybe have like child crime. But unfortunately, during this time of my transition, so I knew what I wanted, but I didn't know yet. And my mom was really sick. And so
You don't mind me asking, sick how?
she had cancer.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And she had a mass in her uterus, and we were able to get it removed. And then it metastasized 7 years later and spread to her lungs. And she did chemo. And then since her last chemo, to the day she died was about 7 months.
Okay.
And,
I'm sorry to hear that.
well, it led me to where I am today. So
How
thank
so?
you. Well, so it gets a bit dark where, I also go to hospital deaths as a coroner, right? Just in case they came in within 24 hours, there's guidelines that the coroner has to meet to go investigate it. So I went to the hospital quite a bit, and I knew, what signs look like. And I worked a graveyard shift, and my dad called me super early, and he's like, I had to take your mom to the hospital. She's intubated. You need to come here right away. So I got off shift and went there, and she's intubated, and I just immediately knew that something's not right.
You've seen enough.
Yeah, something's not going well, and I don't think it's gonna end well. He kept her on life support for a while.
What's a while?
About a week and a half.
Okay.
And I knew she didn't sign a DNR, but unfortunately, I think she, in respect, signed one on his behalf for him. And so I knew ultimately her wishes was to just go and not be in pain anymore. He asked me on my birthday, which is the 4th of July, if he could remove her from life support. And I said, absolutely, this should have happened a week ago. And so he did. And
he is in your father?
He is my father, yes. And my mother. So I was born at home in my New York home. Literally, my father was the one that delivered me.
Really?
Yeah. And so my birthday is really special in that meaning, but also kind of changed when he made that decision to take her off life support on my birthday. But knowing my mother's fashion, she took her last breath at midnight on July 5th. And what's really powerful is that I was there next to her. And as soon as she took her last breath, I immediately got the overwhelming feeling that I was going to go be a trooper.
Really?
That was
it, huh?
Yeah, I looked to my husband and I said, I'm going to test for trooper next go around. And he was like, random, but okay.
Like right then?
Next to her bedside. Next to her bedside, that was my decision.
Really?
And and I knew it was kind of her releasing.
That's an interesting feeling and emotion and everything like that during that time to be like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a cop.
Yeah, well, she I think I didn't realize she had so much impact on my decision.
For sure.
Until that moment. And it was kind of like her letting me go and letting me follow my heart. And so that following year, I tested and went through the academy.
And became a cop.
Really?
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah, just wild.
So what year was this?
So my mom passed in 2017, and I became a trooper in 2018.
18.
Mm-hmm.
How was it as a woman going through? Because, I mean, we're very good friends with a female law enforcement officer here. You'd probably know her, but she's hilarious. I feel like she's built to be a cop. Like, just, if you just picture a female, I would look at you a million times and be like, never would have guessed the profession as a cop. But her, 100, just talk to her for 2 seconds. I'm like, oh, you're 100% a cop.
Right.
But what was that like going through the academy? I mean, how is it? I mean, as a woman, is it based off of just equal across the part and you just have to keep up? Or, because I kind of relate things to like as boot camp, we'd always have the female sides of things, and then the male, we never crossed paths because they had their own style, their own different training or obstacles and things like that. Okay. Were you just thrown right into the mix and you just go with it?
Yeah, you're held at the same expectations and level as the men. So, which you go in there with that expectation, and some women maybe don't, but if you're there to look for, be there the long haul and you want to be the best you can be, then you go in there with that same expectation and you're doing everything they're doing. And my class was of 28 and we graduated with 8.
What?
Yeah. And we only had one woman the whole time, and that was me.
What? There's that much of a nutrition rate?
Yeah.
I didn't really.
Yeah, and that was the most extreme academy.
Okay.
Was mine when it came to those numbers.
Why is that? Oh,
it just depends. I think it.
So there's not that many people dropping out normally, or is this just like?
Not that extreme.
Okay.
There's usually quite a bit, but maybe
I feel like
not.
That's extreme.
It's pretty extreme. Yeah. 20 people. But usually it's not that extreme, but there are quite a bit. And then during the field training, FTO after the academy.
Okay.
Some more do drop too. I don't think any in my class dropped out.
But I mean, you're a couple of years into the department at this point. I mean, you've dispatched, you learned the lingo, you know the calls and how to talk. I mean, it had to have been pretty easy for you, right?
No.
Really? Why
So,
so? Sorry if I'm
no, it's
assuming,
good.
but I just feel like if you had that much time.
Right. You would expect that, which I was prepared when it came to the expectations. But because I knew everybody, I knew the specialists, I knew the drill sergeants, or they're called TAC officers. I knew everybody. I knew them personally.
Did they make your life hell or what?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Well, and rightfully so. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way, because I don't want to be fed this. I want to earn it, and I want the respect from my counterparts. So, yeah. And so there was a TAC officer. There was two that were my favorite. One was this guy, and he definitely, I was in his crosshairs because he didn't know me. He was from up in Coeur d'Alene. And so he felt more comfortable to get in my face and haze me, and I loved every minute of it. And
Why didn't you join the military?
I should have. I didn't know anything about that in high school. I should have. I would have loved it.
I didn't know shit either. I just signed the dotted line and then I figured it out. After talking to so many guys, they're like, I didn't know what I signed up for either. So, yeah, maybe if I knew what I was getting myself into, I probably wouldn't have signed up. But that's hilarious. I feel like you would have made like a great officer. Like just the fact that you're just like a glutton for.
Well, it's the camaraderie, it's the team atmosphere. You know, you're all going through the shit, right? I remember 0 day. They don't count it a day. It's the first day you get there. I saw
0 day.
Yeah, 0 day. It's 104 out, and this was a summer academy. And I knew, so we go in the morning, you do your PT test. If you fail, you're out already.
Really?
Yeah. And then you go and you wait 2 hours, which was like the most agonizing 2 hours, because you're like, just your adrenaline's raging. You know shit's about to hit the fan when you get there, back there. And yeah, you pull in, you get to your spot, your attention, and they're there. They're sharks just waiting to, eat you up.
So your TAC officers are your drill instructors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you're getting smoked all day on 0 day, which is a Sunday.
What do you mean by getting smoked? Like just haze, like physically?
Yeah. For hours and hours. We were outside.
What do they have you doing?
Oh, gosh. I can't remember everything, but I remember there was a time, and I was trying not to smile because I was really enjoying it.
Really?
Yeah. Because it's funny, right? Like, you're all going through this shit. You're just, it all sucks. Embrace the suck. Like, let's do this. This is what we signed up for. But we were in the grass yard out near the big track, and so the asphalt's super hot, and it's 104, and we're doing like bear crawls and crab walks and just back and forth, and they're hosing us down with the water. And I'm just like, this is so great. And you can hear, you look around and you see what's going on around you, the guys, and just the agony, and it sucks, right? You're sweating bullets, and you're just like, this is great. So we do that. We would run laps. We would do burpees or push, skid plates across the asphalt, and then we would go and fight the Red Man Sioux, which is a guy in this big padded suit, and you're just like full. You have to give it 110, right? If you don't, then you're gonna go get smoked again, and so you're just all day.
And how long is the academy?
The academy is 18 weeks long, and the first 2 weeks are the most brutal 2 weeks.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, and I knew because. So for the academy, you stay on campus. You can't call anybody. You don't have your phones. They wake you up. They pound on your door at 4 in the morning, do PT, and all the way until 10 o'clock at night. And they have taser. You have to get tased. That's a mandatory. That was the first time the state police ever brought tasers was my academy, and I knew, I was like, I need to get tased first, because I don't want to watch anybody else get tased, because I need to let's just get this done, because they were going to do different areas, and I was like, just do it in my back, let's get this gone. So yeah, first I volunteered.
I've been tased.
It's awful. I would rather be OC'd.
I have a phobia of electricity now. Oh, I'd get OC'd all day.
Yeah, I said that, and they're like, 100%. You are crazy. I'm like,
100%. If somebody drew a gun on me, I'd be like they drew a taser, I'd be like, okay, give me the cuffs. Like I got tased, and it's
awful. Your organs are frying inside of you and you're like suffocating at the same time.
Yes.
It's terrible.
So I volunteered. I'll tell the story real quick. You'll probably get a kick out of it. So there's this job expo on Camp Pendleton. We're all young Marines. They take us up there and we can walk around. There's this table of these SWAT guys. And they're all tacked out and like, typical SWAT officers, right? And they're like, yo, and they look at me like, yo, you want to win some of this? And I was like, all right. They're like, this is some cool gear, whatever. I'm like, what do I got to do? They're like, if you could take one step, you win. You could pick anything on this table. And they had like badass plate carriers and like all kinds of like SWAT gear. I was like,
tased.
Okay. Man, I was like, okay, I'll. But here, this is where my stupid Marine mind was. We had just done all these deployments and we're stopping in like Hong Kong. And so everyone's buying tasers and shit and like zapping nipples and dudes sleeping, you'd zap them in the groin. Like
Not
it was just life, right? Like you're getting zapped all the time. Like like brush your teeth, some like sticks you with a taser. That's just how it was growing, especially on ship. Like
right.
You can't escape it. Like they drop us off in these countries and everything's legal and everyone's just buying it, smuggling it back on the Navy ship. So you're just like walking around like constantly in fear of getting electrocuted and you just get used to it. So me and everyone's like, oh, bam, you got this. Oh. You got it, bro. You got it. I'm like, yeah, I got it. So they hooked me up. They had the roach clip ones, thank God.
Oh.
It wasn't the
probes.
So they put one on the back of my calf and they put one on my shoulder blade. And they're like, all right, dude, this is the rule. If you could take one step, anything on this table is yours. I was like, okay, cool. And then like they're like holding me. I'm like, no, you guys don't need to hold me. Like, I got it. They're like, no, we need to hold you.
Yeah.
So I was like, whenever you're ready. And I thought I was going to like be slick and this motherfucker was waiting. And it doesn't turn off. I was like, I just rode this thing which seemed like 5 seconds, 10 seconds, which is an eternity when you can't breathe.
Right. And your body's seizing up.
And I hit the ground. Instant phobia of electricity.
They didn't catch you?
No, these sons of bitches they had a mat, but like you bounce off this thing like. So typical Marines, all my guys are behind me like, I want to try. And these guys start lining up and I'm like, like ripping these things off of me and I couldn't breathe. Like, I'm like, what just happened? Dudes were lining up and these SWAT officers are like, just zapping. There were so many Marines lined up. They were having dudes lay down and then like interlock arms and they would put the one on one end and they were zapping like 10 guys at a time. And then this giant, I'll never forget this guy. I got to have one of my buddies on because he'll vouch for the story. One of the biggest Marines I've ever seen in my life. This big, giant black dude. I mean, just massive human being.
Oh, God.
And we go and find this guy. We see him walking. They're like, bam, go get him, go get him. It's like, yo, dude, nobody's been able to do this. You got it. And he's like, I got this shit. And I'm like I knew he's giant, muscular dude. And they're like, oh, the more muscle, the worse. Just zapping people. And they're like, this is a new one. This is whatever million volts it was, it felt like. So this giant ass Marine. And he's all cocky and shit. I'm like, oh, there's no way he's going to. But at like half of me was like, he's got it. And the other half was like, no. If it ruined me that bad, and I've never been
so restrained.
Yeah, I don't even know, like,
yeah.
Just like you can't breathe.
Convulsing,
you just nothing. I was watching dudes scream, like grown ass men scream as they're getting tased.
That's so great.
This dude's standing there and they're like, all right, you ready? And there's all these guys, other sheriffs and SWAT guys holding them, and this dude screamed for his mom. Like, as they're lowering him and his arms are like one of these, he's like, Mom. Like, we're all like, okay, we're done. And then like half the line was like, I'm good. Like the rest of the dudes were like, I'm good. Being tased was...
It's the worst.
Horrible. I would do a gas chamber, OC spray.
Yep.
I'll ride that for hours in agony afterward over the fear that being tased put into my body.
Yep.
I don't mess with electricity to this day. Like changing a light bulb, I'm like, my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, never again. And I've been electrocuted a couple of times since. It's the same thing. It's the same feeling.
The real fear. The fear's in there. It's strong.
It's embedded in you. Sorry, I don't mean to get off track, but being tased. So it's
funny because a lot of the troopers out there, they prefer to get tased all day over OC.
No way.
So those 2 weeks, it's like tase on a Thursday, and it's called Red Friday. On that Friday, you get sprayed with OC, and then you have to go in, and there's inside the gymnasium, none of your recruits can watch, and there's different stations, and so you have to like fight somebody, you have to ground wrestle, you have to, there's a scenario of who to shoot, one has a gun, one has a knife, and they're coming at you, what do you do? And you're blind because the OC spray. And so that was the last day, and I knew I needed to get to that day. And if I got to that day, those 2 weeks, I'm golden. I'm golden. I could do this all day. So after that, and actually I was deconning, I was running back and forth trying to get wind in my ice, and I was like, I fucking did it.
You knew it.
I was like, so like, and I was like.
Now, is that toward the beginning or the end of your course?
It's in the beginning. It's the first.
So once you know it, you're like, okay, it's just curriculum and classroom time from here and just learning, or
you still get smoked. So in those 2 weeks, a lot of people drop because they're like, I'm not going to get tased. I'm not going to get OC'd. I don't want to fight somebody. We do.
I don't blame them on the tasing thing. I would not judge.
You got to get through it, and if you all don't do it, then you're all getting smoked, but you're getting smoked anyways after. So that's what they don't tell you.
Surprise.
Yeah. Doesn't matter if you do it or not. And then you box. So I think at that time there was like 10 or 12 guys, and I had to box each one of them back to back to back for 2 minutes each. And
that's a long time.
It is a long time. It definitely got rocked.
When you can't breathe and your eyes are on fire and your snot running down your face and you got to fight for 4 minutes. I used to run cohesion chambers, which were these kind of like the same thing for training, but yeah, we would just smoke these dudes after just bear spraying them in the face, and we would just fight them all day. It was a blast. I enjoyed being on the opposite side.
But you would also get it, right? Like if you're boxing them, you're getting it on you.
It's everywhere. It sucked. Yeah, and nobody's a winner, but they have it way worse than us. Like so
right
for sure.
In the eyes. But a lot of people dropped during those 2 weeks, and then after those 16 weeks, you still. There's hazing, but not as much. You're earning the respect. You're working as a team. That's what they want from you is
for sure.
Don't give up, embrace the suck, work as a team, right?
Break them down, build them up.
Yep. And if they see you're not working as a team, then they're going to insert, if it's hazing or, getting smoked in whatever capacity or team projects or whatever, they'll change it up and pick a different president or whatever the term is of the academy, and they'll change it up. And at some points there was my dynamic of my academy of guys. I think I had a higher expectation because of what I've seen go through the academy working there, but also what my husband went through, what I desired and my expectations. And it kind of turned into like a popularity contest, and I was like super unimpressed with that. Okay. And so the TAC officer saw that a lot of the time my counterparts were pretty disrespectful towards me and not listening to me, and so they would make me the president to
force them.
Yeah,
they don't have a choice at that point.
Yeah, which didn't help. Didn't help me and the dynamic of my academy.
Because now you're put on a pedestal, and you already had a riff within your, I guess, a platoon, I would call it. But that never helps the situation. No. I mean, it definitely doesn't help your situation. You're probably like, I'm good.
I'm just trying to like give them. I just want to
graduate. Let these guys do it. But then they put you in charge.
Let them be. I don't care. This is not what I signed up for, to be popular. But and we lost a bunch of people, and there was only 8 of us, which was easier to manage. But it opened my eyes, because what I didn't know is, the dynamic between men and women, and how that can be challenged and difficult.
How so?
In every aspect, it's different. So like we would do Krav Maga, and so not a lot of guys wanted to fight a girl, right? Mm-hmm. It's a bit different. Or they don't want to hurt me or whatever. And I'm like, you need to look at me as an equal.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Let's go. And so, or we would do searches. Searching on a female is different than searching on a male.
Very much.
Right? So some of the guys weren't just maybe mature enough or professional enough or took it serious enough, which contributed to that, how they respected me and what I would say or how I would command them to, as a whole team or what have you. And so I had a drill sergeant female, She attack officer. She actually is in the military as a drill sergeant, and she is a ultimate badass. When you say you know somebody as a female law enforcement officer who looks like it, this is who I picture too.
Okay.
Just full of muscle, just beefy, and she was a close friend too. And
how was that? Did she turn it off and you just had to respect it, or what?
well, I knew they needed to do their job
For sure.
and I needed to take them serious, right? And so there was that mutual respect. Like I didn't expect, like I said, it.
And you're not looking for the hookup either, so.
No. And so I was going to ask her a question, and so she came back to the class, and I wasn't there. We were doing something, and they told me after I came back, hey, she's looking for you. Go talk to her when you have time. I was like, okay. I was going to talk to her after the class, so I didn't miss any of the educational piece, and that was super disrespectful. Like I got back to the class and should have gone and straight to her.
Okay.
And so she smoked me at the end of the day. Just me with 30-pound dumbbells doing burpees in 100-degree weather. And I knew what she was doing. It was a good lesson, but it was beyond that lesson. And she's yelling at me. She's saying, you're going to encounter this in your career. You are going to be a female that's going to be challenged and not listened to, not taken seriously. You're going to be targeted. You're going to be, this is what it's going to feel like. You need to power through.
Yeah.
And the other techs are yelling at the other 7 guys, you need to get down there and work with her, work out with her, be next to her. And they're trying to take my weights. And I'm like, don't fucking touch my weights. Don't touch my weights. This is happening for a reason. I did this. Don't touch. You can do burpees next to me. Don't touch my fucking weights. Yep. So
good.
So yeah, she and I. After a year being on patrol, I thanked her because I did go through a lot, and
You're
I was like,
okay.
That was a way greater lesson than I knew at that time,
For
and I
sure.
appreciate more than anything.
They always are.
Yeah.
You don't understand it until it's like your
Yeah.
parents.
I mean,
they teach you, and
yeah.
afterward you're like,
In the academy, you think, this tack is just being an asshole or
part
whatever.
of the game. Yep.
Yeah, but no, this was
You had a good lesson behind
a
it.
great life lesson for sure.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So after you get out of the academy, is Idaho different? Because I know I have buddies that are cops in all different states, and some of them have to go to the jailhouse, some have to go to the court. Idaho's different, right? Like you go straight to the patrol?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you go straight to the road.
Were you solo or did you have a partner?
So you have to do 3 months of FTO, which is field training with a field training officer.
Okay.
And they're different phases. Each are 1 phase or 1 month each.
This is after you graduate.
Yep.
So now you're an official cop. You're sworn in, you got a badge, your sidearm, everything. And so now you're just left seat. We call it left seat, right seat
Okay.
in the military.
Okay.
So, you ride passenger for half the time. When new units and things are transitioning over, we do left seat, right seat. So that's your FTO, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we would do a day, just 1 day of like shadowing that our FTO, and then we would switch and start. And each phase you do more and more. So the first phase you're driving and maybe dispatching on the radio. You're talking about violations you see on the road.
Are you talking to any of your friends that you were working with at this point?
Only 2 of them.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, it's a random question, but I wasn't sure if you're like, it's me.
Yeah.
I made it.
Which is weird because as a dispatcher, you're supposed to say, so for dispatch, and it's been a while since I've said it, but you'd say control 650 as a trooper. So you'd say, hey, it's me. And in dispatch, you say that too, but you say 650 control. And so I had that reverse in my head. And so when I was on the road, I would accidentally reverse it and they would giggle. Yeah. And they would giggle, go ahead. And so, yeah. So I because I had that knowledge and that confidence in that area, like it was a lot faster of transition for me. And then second phase was a little bit more, you're doing more, you're making the light, you're more on your own. And in the third phase, they're not doing anything.
You're on your own.
Yeah. If you're asking for like a backup, they'll be your backup. But yeah, you're more on your own.
Are they putting you in parts of areas where you're like, are they changing around, or are you just staying in one specific area of operation, like an AO? Is that it? Or do they, during these phases, are they putting you like
different parts of
where they know things are going to be different scenarios? I don't know how to ask without.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. So yes, they would. So I was here at District 3. So this is, they have it kind of like you count from the top down and around for Idaho, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 districts. My jurisdiction, which is the entire state, but our district was Riggins down to Nevada, Ontario, past Glens Ferry.
That's wild.
So like I could be the only trooper on for that whole area.
Is it still like this?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I just happen to find the one trooper always on these random.
You're just lucky. You're just those motorcycle times coming back to haunt you. Yeah. But yeah, so each phase I would go with a different FTO, and sometimes it would be a resident trooper. So I was with the resident trooper in Payette. So we worked his area.
Resident as in he lives out there.
He lives out there.
That's his community.
Yep. Okay. He knows everybody. He works from Weiser down to Duck Valley, that whole 95 corridor. And so I would work that area. And so I'd have to really know that area, Payette, New Plymouth, Sand Hollow, just like all of that. And then there'd be like the next phase, I would be on night shift, the DUI time, where DUIs, work on DUIs, drugs, DHE stuff, that type. And then the next phase was kind of like whatever your FTO schedule on.
Got it.
But you can go, I could drive up to McCall for a day and work in McCall if I wanted to.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I could do whatever, which was, I mean, that's what I also wanted, is every day to be different, right? So I loved that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's how I knew I didn't want to be a city cop or a sheriff, because I wanted the freedom of going anywhere and everywhere.
So you guys are almost like game wardens in a way. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but there's one per like a region, and they cover such a vast. So we have here state, city,
sheriff,
ISP, which would be sheriff?
No, state is ISP.
Okay.
Yep.
ISP, state.
Yep.
City.
Yep. Sheriff.
Sheriffs.
And Fish and Game. Yeah.
And they all have, I mean, just as a normal.
We're really unique. I mean, it's not common, right?
No.
Like in New York, there's my brother-in-law is a New York State Trooper, and so there's the state police, and then there's sheriff. But there's
I'm thinking California's highway. So I mean, you have city and highway. I mean,
it's different.
It is different.
In Idaho, I mean, our state police they need more. We need a lot more, especially with inflation in the last couple of years.
Oh, it's insane.
We need a lot more troopers for sure.
And I'm sure they're not getting the numbers right now.
No.
With everything that's going on, and
not at all.
Which we'll get into that. But so now you're full blown out doing your own thing. And
yeah.
How long were you on the road for?
I was on the road for 2 years.
Okay.
And I loved it until a certain point where I was challenged as a female when it came to my chain of command.
How so?
It ultimately came down to a personality conflict. I don't think we jived, which was really odd, because we did jive. We were really close when I was a dispatcher, but when I became a trooper, it was just different. And I think my long-term goal was to be a detective in 5 years. That was my goal. They knew that. So you have politics within law enforcement, and that person, that chain of command, that individual really, I was their focus every day.
Okay.
And didn't matter if other men were doing something, I couldn't do it. Yeah. And so to the point.
You were in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tried not to even think of it like that, like whatever. And it was 6, 8 months, 9 months down the road. And I'm like, man, I must really suck at my job. I must really be a shitty human being. Which is so weird, because, every day I'd go in and there'd be something that they would yell at me about. But my team of guys, they were like, you're doing awesome. Like, you are fourth in the district with felonies, and you have the highest number of fatal crashes as a district car, and just like all this shit. And they were happy. I mean, I was the first one seen. If they called for backup, I would be overly protective over my guys, because I know they have my back too. And then I would go in the office, and, the chain of command has something to say about me.
Were they just trying to you think they were trying to force you out, or like, what was the deal?
Yeah, I think it was an intimidation tactic. And
there's other women, obviously, right? You're not the only female, or are you?
No, I'm not the only female. Out of like 180 of us, there was maybe 12 of us women. Okay. So pretty small. It's not a common thing, but there was other women. They were friends with other women.
Yeah.
But it was me, and that's why maybe it's a personality conflict.
Yeah.
Maybe they hate investigations, and that's my long-term goal.
And it works like that, huh?
Unfortunately, life, there's individuals that can be petty and catty, and it's true in our chain of command and everywhere, right, in every career. But this person really made my life hell to the point where it became almost an officer safety.
Interesting.
During defund the police and in the protest at the Capitol, we would work, and that individual would go and talk poorly about me to my male counterparts about how I would never have their back, or he would say, I'm never going to have him come here or have her come here. I know she wants to come here, and she's going to go work the road, go sit in her car and do nothing. I'm not going to invite her to her.
You think he had a thing for you? I feel like it's one of those, like,
I didn't even think about that, but I don't think so.
I mean, I see it so, like, I'm not saying this person in specific, but I've seen it where, like, guys get jealous where they don't have a shot, or they just know, like, you're unavailable, and they almost take, like, a hatred side to it and start going that route, just make your life hell because you're not either on their side or friends with them. Or
it's a good point of view, and I definitely didn't think of that.
I mean, in the military, like, girls stand for themselves, and they're not, they're set in their own ways and don't go a certain route, and guys start hating on it for it. And he definitely never had any, like, signs or anything like that.
At least not the obvious signs. I mean, because
you're working with your husband too at the time, right? Or
he was investigations and I was in patrol. Okay. I mean, it's nothing new because I dispatched for him when he was in patrol, and so it's our normal life. But he also knew my husband very well too.
Interesting.
And so, but he would threaten verbal write-ups and written unofficial write-ups, which he did do one time, which didn't even make sense, and it was unofficial, wasn't even going to go in my packet, my long-term. It just was it's just intimidation.
Mind-boggling, yeah.
Right, and which worked. It got in my head, right? It as much as I was a really strong, powerhouse of a woman, like, I don't take.
You could only take it for so long.
Yeah, you can only get beaten for so long, sure. And I was starting to question my skill set. I was starting to question, do I have probable cause to pull this car over? Am I seeing it correctly?
So now it's affecting you on the road.
Right. It's
which
a
is
thing.
not
okay. Because for women, obviously, I'm not stronger than you. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to kick my ass, you could in a heartbeat, right? But I'm not going to allow that to stop me. I'm going to communicate with you in a level that maybe you have no idea. And I had that happen. I had a guy I pulled over. This was during the whole defund police movement, and I stopped a car because his front windshield is tinted. He's from California, all the way around, super black, can't see in there. Idaho's got tinted laws. Pulled him over on the median side, so meaning I'm approaching the driver's side, door. But I can't see, so I don't pass the first passenger side window until his window goes down. So his window goes down, there's kids in the car. And I go up to him, and he's just immediately...
on the defense.
Oh, yeah, you fucking pulled me over because the color of my skin, just, motherfucking me the whole time. And I'm like, all right, this guy's super upset, like, right away, which is a sign as a cop. Like, why are you so mad? We're just here to talk. Like, let's talk about this. But he's instantly pissed off. And so I call for backup. Nobody comes. Nobody's available. And this was in Meridian, where you expect that we
most
have
people to be.
More cops to be. And I'm like, well, I'm also 3 months pregnant at this time.
That's scary.
And I knew that this guy could rock my world. And on the median side, I could get hit by a car. He could throw me in lane travel right. And so I was like, I'm going to pull him out. I'm going to talk to him. So I pull him out of the car, and I get him away from his family, because now he's showing his kids that this is
all right behavior,
totally okay, which is so disrespectful. And he's still yelling at me. And I just knew that I needed to meet him at his level. And so I just got right up to him. He's a lot taller. And I said, you shut the fuck up right now and you listen to me. I said, I pulled you over because I couldn't see inside your fucking windows. How would I know what you look like?
And he's like,
And he's like, you're just a normal cop, blah, blah, blah. And I said, you don't understand the words coming out of my fucking mouth. So you go ahead and sit on the barrier right here. So I run him, and I knew at that point I wasn't going to give him a ticket because, I mean, he's from California, has California plates. I'm going to give him a warning, put him in our warning system. And if someone else pulls him over.
Is that a real thing? Because I always get threatened with that. Like, we put you in our system. And I'm like, oh, okay.
It's a real thing.
Is it?
Shit, yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And so I come back to him, and I'm like, I'm not going to give you a ticket, but you're showing your kids how to be super fucking disrespectful to cops. And that's a far bigger lesson. And so he stood up and shook my hand and said, thank you for showing me respect. I've never had a cop show me respect like that.
Well, it goes both ways. It's why I love the police audit videos, those like, there's one guy I follow on Facebook, but anyways, and you see these cops and I'm just like, oh God, like just match, you can film, like you can stand on the sidewalk and film, and then the video's over, but then, they push and they just
poke.
You're like, but if you match people and I feel like that's a skill a lot of people don't learn.
Yeah. I think women use it as a lifeline, right? Because you have to show respect. Like I said, 100%. I don't have the strength you do, but I can show them respect. Mm-hmm. I'm going to respect you until you show me disrespect and you're lying to me.
Yeah.
Then we're at a whole different level at that point. Yep. But growing up, in college, when I was in the criminal justice classes, I had a professor tell me women shouldn't be in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. I had a trooper tell me when I was in dispatch that women shouldn't be in law enforcement. I've had so many people tell me this along the way. Yeah. And I just didn't care. It was like, you all have a problem with this, but that's your problem. This isn't my problem. But, I think another thing that was holding me back besides my mother was that the physical part. How was I going to do this? How was I going to go rounds with a guy? Which is a thing, right?
Have you had to? Is there any situations where you were like, oh, fuck, that could escalate? Like, did you ever have any of those, like, come to Jesus moments, out by yourself? Yeah,
so I had, I haven't done any ground fighting with somebody, thankfully. But I had a few pursuits. I had one pursuit that was out near, like, Sand Hollow, pretty remote area, spotty radio service. And we were on the canal bank pursuing. And that's like my neck of the woods. Like I love going in the remote areas. And I had this guy stole a car. He stole a ton of cars. He was high on meth. I just got out of prison and stole a bunch of cars, I think like 17. And I just happened to be in the area looking for this guy or this last stolen car. And I get this intersection and this a parked truck is like 20 feet away from the intersection. I'm like, that's really odd. So I go down and I see that this truck comes ripping out of this house. And it's like farmland home. So they got like 20 acres around him. He comes ripping out, goes to the canal bank. And I was like, that's odd behavior. Let's go. And so we go and I'm telling dispatch because then they're trying to tell the guys over here in the valley because I'm probably, I'm like a good 35 minutes away.
At least 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Hauling ass.
Yeah. And plus I'm on a canal bank, which don't have street signs. So I had a GPS. So I was using the parallel street that I was near. And so the farmer just witnessed this guy get in his truck and take it. And so he's paralleling us on the canal bank. So so
you're chasing the suspect, and the farmer's on the other side of the canal. That's hilarious.
Following us, and the canal bank is like super muddy, so it's trying to pull me in. I have Dodge Charger, and he's in a pickup and is trying to pull me in, and so I'm just trying to keep it. It was my third phase FTO, so this was all hands off. This is just me, and he's. I think it was like the second to last week he was supposed to be with me, and he's like. Yelling at me, control your car. And I'm like, shut up. I'm trying to control my car and keep up with him because we're going like 80 on a muddy canal bank.
Yeah.
And so he goes into a dairy and gets stuck in a sludge pile. And we get out and the guy's not getting out. You can hear him trying to reverse and go and trying to get out. You can see him. We're starting to flank hit the driver's side, and the farmer shows up, and he's like, he has my truck. He has a pistol fully loaded with a bunch of cash in the glove box or in the console right next to him. And I could see the pistol sitting on the console. And so we're flanking the driver's side, yelling commands, and he's not coming out. He's not showing his hands. And so times, I'm sure you had this moment where time just slows down.
Oh, yeah.
And it slows, and you're just like, you're waiting you're playing all these scenarios already in your head. Is he going to pull the pistol?
What's the next move?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so thankfully, he opens the door. We get him. He makes comments like, I should have came out with a pistol. I get to go back home, which he's referring to prison. He's, high as a kite. And luckily, everything went well. But that was a moment where it was like, things could have gotten real quick, and could have changed. And then everybody else finally arrived. But
30 minutes later.
Yeah. But that was
longer.
I think that was my first moment of like, all right, this could go down. This could go down anywhere, and could go worse. Who knows? So
you have problems with, obviously, I don't want to say coworker, a superior. And you said that you were 2 years in, then you started the transition to detective at that point?
Yeah.
Or what was your next role? Like, when did you realize that, like, okay, this isn't for me?
Yeah. So I loved working with my team, my patrol team, my guys, because we would get in all kinds of trouble. Like, it was just a good time when it came to working. Like, the team morale was high. It was fun. We'd have each other's back, and we would do what's right and be fair and respectful to people. And it was enjoyable. You should enjoy what you do, right?
For sure.
So, I took it on the chin enough times where I was like, this is going to expedite my plan, and I want to go to investigations ASAP. So
it kind of worked out for the best because, I mean, I'm sure you'd like to been on the road a little longer, but I mean, your end goal, it just helped you get there a little quicker, right?
Yeah. I mean, patrol is great because you get experience in all kinds of areas, right? And so it's priceless. And I wanted that. I wanted more of that. But yeah, I mean, it ultimately got me to my goal where I wanted sooner. But in investigations, I knew what I was going into because they were already a family when I was an investigative assistant.
Okay.
So they already knew me and how I work. They know my work ethic.
Is it hard to become like a detective I mean, do you have to be selected for it? You put in a package. How does it work in the law enforcement world? Like, you want to transition from road to detective or anything else like SWAT? I mean, how do you go that route?
It's a promotion. So you have to apply and interview, and then you have to do like a one-on-one with the captain. And sometimes, I mean, every time it can be different, but sometimes they put you through a written type of testing where you have to write, what would you do in this scenario? And then you have to write a whole page on what you do.
Got it.
So, yeah.
So you become a detective.
I became a detective, and I was so thrilled. And I was also pregnant, so I finished my pregnancy.
You got to kind of chill a little bit.
Which was nice because I swore once I got pregnant that I was not going to sit in dispatch. I was not going to sit at the front desk. I was not going to push paper.
You're like, I'm not going to be her. I'm not that woman.
I'm not doing that. I don't want to sit and do nothing. Like, I'm growing a human, but I can also do more.
How does that work, being pregnant and being on the road? Are they are some women, did you get to a certain point, they're like, okay, like, or is it kind of your call? How does that work?
Well, I think both. I mean, I didn't tell anybody, so...
You were hiding it?
Yeah, so I told my...
You're chasing a dude down a canal, pregnant, and your department doesn't even know?
No, so...
Hilarious.
There was a few of my guys on my patrol team. They knew, and so they were like a bit protective over me, especially if I asked just for like backup just to show up. They would come...
That is hilarious.
Come quick, and so they were pretty cool. Yeah,
so once you start like poking, they're like, hey, it's time? Is that how they do it, or are you just like eventually? Well, so can't hide this anymore. Like
I got my uniform redone so it could grow with me.
You're like, I need a new plate carrier. I can't even get this.
That was rough. Yeah, that was rough.
That's gotta be
the belt was rough.
Really rough on your stomach.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I think some women, I mean, they can choose however they want. If they want to go and sit at a front desk, they certainly can. That's their prerogative. My prerogative was that I was not going to sit and be bored at a desk. That's not what I signed up for. So,
Wow.
and I had faith in my guys. They were my brothers, and they had my back. And so, and then, during this time when I promoted investigations, that was like, I knew that was going to be the pivotal point where like, okay, it's going to get harder to get out of this low car. It's going to be hard to chase somebody. I need to
This time.
I need to think about my safety and my guy's safety too, ultimately. So yeah, it was like the best pivotal point for me where I promoted because it was going to be the time.
So as a detective, I mean, are you thrown right into it? They just give you
yeah.
a case?
Yeah. I mean, you're part of everything. So whatever calls come, investigations was.
What do you investigate? What was your favorite thing to investigate?
Well, I loved major crimes. So
As
I
in
loved
what?
it, meaning
What's a major crime?
major
Murder?
crime is like, homicides. We had a quadruple or a double homicide. We had officer-involved shootings. I liked investigating those. And then I found that
The cops like you when you're investigating it, or do you become like...
they do because we're respectful. Like, we totally treat them with respect. And
Is it hard to investigate another fellow officer?
I would say maybe in the beginning it could be awkward, but honestly, it's your brothers, right? You're the
That's why I
blue
asked,
line.
because the
You can be
military, it's
protected.
like you never, especially the Marine Corps, I mean, you never cross each... I mean, you take shit to the grave. And then
Well,
I feel like if I had to like investigate someone...
I think it's an understanding when you sign up to be a cop is
For
that
sure.
if you get in a shooting, you have to be investigated by your own agency internally, making sure you followed policy and procedure accurately, but also by a different agency for the prosecutor ultimately is also investigating you and you're doing it for them. So I think there's that mutual understanding that that's going to happen. We're not like quarterbacking their what just happened or anything. We show them respect and and they have a lawyer, and so they review our reports and everything. And yeah, I've done it so many times that I don't feel that it's awkward or anything. I think it's just it's understanding it's part of the risk.
Did you ever find any cops guilty of anything, like foul play?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's a pretty common case here. It blew up pretty big. And we submitted our reports and our findings of the investigation to the prosecutor, and it was on the prosecutor, and the prosecutor decided not to do charges. So
Really? Can you talk about this case or no?
I can.
what
It's been adjudicated. So it's known as the case. Have you heard about the case?
Mm-mm.
So the case is
You were the investigator for this?
no, I wasn't the primary investigator.
But you were on it?
I was actually with the investigative assistant at that time with them. But it definitely stuck out because it was a rancher over on Highway 95. His bull got out, and a car hit the bull, and they died. And the officers came on scene, and granted, this is a remote area. This isn't the city. And those officers were trying to what they call dispatch the bull, put the bull down, because it looked pretty injured, but it was super agitated and was trying to hit them. And the rancher was not happy, and he came with a shotgun, but on behalf of trying to dispatch his own bull. And those cops will know the truth of what happened. So I can't tell you exactly what their truth is.
What was stated?
Well, they're different stories.
Did they get in a shootout with the rancher?
Yeah, they shot and killed the rancher. And so their stories were different and didn't make sense. We even took like the asphalt from where one of the bullets went, took that out of Highway 95. We provided like a massive amount of facts and evidence even to them, and said, this does not make sense. And
So both cops that were involved, they had two different stories, which is a huge red flag immediately.
Yeah.
As a detective, I mean, that's what you're looking for.
well, it's a huge red flag. And then we offer them, okay, this is what we know. Here are the facts. And we even did a mock scene on our track, and we did we had a camera to record the conversation and them physically showing us how it happened.
They had no body
Where's
cam
the
of
bull?
this?
No body cam. It's a remote agency, so they don't have some of the resources that we have. And so we had them physically show us, where's this bull? Where's this rancher? Where'd you shoot? What were you point? Like for hours. And I worked this case as an investigative assistant, but I put the books together. Like I put all the evidence together. I knew it like the back of my hand. Yeah. And ultimately we didn't agree with what they're saying, and we provided that to the prosecutor and the Attorney General's office. And ultimately they both decided not to pursue charges. Both those cops resigned. One went to Montana and the other one I think is local, but it was just
a shit show.
Yeah.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah, but when it came to like other shooting, that was the only time, and since honestly from my whole career that we've had officers lie or be a wrongful shoot.
I feel like that's the shitty part about law enforcement or cops, especially because you guys have it's the shittiest job. I tell everybody all the time, it is the shittiest job in the U.S. that I can possibly think of, and
it's pretty different. I mean, it takes.
You're not like, I mean, you fucking firefighters, right? Like they got their calendars and
everybody loves firefighters.
Right? Like you see the fire, you're like, get him, brother. Like, you see a cop, you're like, motherfucker, what's he looking at? But it's just, we have a program in our organization that helps law enforcement officers, but it's like, we refer to law enforcement officers as our era Vietnam veterans. And because it's just, you're not getting called to come and like hand out stuff at a school like firefighters, right? You're like, it's you're not getting called to rescue some cat or some old lady, and maybe, but like it's always the fire. Every call that cops are going on, it is
unhappy, negative, bad. Like it's all those terms where it's unwanted.
I got a taste of it in high school. Our high school, you had to do an internship or something along the workforce that you wanted to do as you grew up and whatever. So I was going military, but you couldn't do anything with the military, so they put me in with law enforcement. I was like, okay, this is something that might be interesting. It was a 2-week ride along, and after the first day, I was like, absolutely not. Like, we went into this house. These people are hoarders. Oh. The smell of cat. You are a cop. You know this situation. Just cats shitting and pissing in the house, and there's just turds. And I'm in fucking high school. I'm a senior. This cop's like, come on in. Like, and I'm like, like, I'm from a village. Like, I didn't even know people live like this. I thought everybody lived the same. Like, every house I've been to was not. And I'm like in this house, and I'm looking at this cop, and he's like stepping in shit. And I was like, no.
Not for me.
100% immediate. I'm going to military, 100%. I'm going to the military now. I should have probably been a cop, but I dealt with way worse shit in the military. But it's insane to me that law enforcement are out there doing so much, trying to do so much good and help and just be there, and then the one person. Yeah. It's one of those situations, and it's one of those careers that like one person ruins it for everybody.
And it is a limelight, and it is,
and then it doesn't go away.
Doesn't.
And then now that's all the whole picture that you have of law enforcement. I was like, this isn't anything, Bray. I've had a lot of run-ins over my years with law enforcement officers, and the majority of them are awesome guys. They're if you just show them the respect. Yeah. I fucked up. You got me. Yeah. Like this time. They're usually cool, and then you get that one. It's just like on the power. Like the cop pulled me over, and I got pistols and rifles falling out of my door, and he was just like, "Is your license plate gonna come out too?" Makes a joke about it. I'm like, "All right, cool," but then at the same time, like, I couldn't imagine. I understand why some cops are just complete assholes because they're just dealing with the shittiest shit every day. Yeah. Every day, you don't know if you're gonna walk up to a window and the dude's just got a pistol in your face, or some sawed-off shotgun, or the guy in the back seat's gonna. Yeah. Hit you when you walk by. I mean, it's just, I couldn't imagine. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, us as veterans or military, we signed that dotted line. We joined the military, at least us, during the time of war. Like, we get to go and then come back. And obviously, you bring things back with you, mental-wise, physically-wise. But, like, we're out of that situation. Like, a cop, your whole career, every single day. And I never really understood the ins and outs of law enforcement, of the day to day. Like you see, and we grew up with Cops, the TV show has been around, and now they have like live PD and all that stuff. But like,
Yeah.
when we jumped into the law enforcement world and really started asking questions like, hey, how can we help you? Or what are some scenarios like what? Because I'm not a law enforcement officer, but we want to help. So we're trying to learn, right?
Yeah.
Until we find a cop that can fill that role for us. Like, it's just like having a cop try to help veterans.
Right.
It's two different worlds. We're serving, but it's two completely different worlds.
Yeah.
These cops would write us these, and this is what I love about law enforcement versus veterans, because we have to help and we always ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll ask vets like, hey, how can we make these adventures or these trips or these camaraderie, how can we make it better? And vets are like, great, things, camaraderie, fun time, and then cops were like, hey, how can we help? And you guys are so used to, so they'd write us these novels.
Oh, nice.
And which is, the more information, the better.
Yeah.
But we're reading these stories, and I'm sitting there with my wife, and we're reading these things, and it's like this cop's writing, it was like, I had got dispatched, I had to go to an accident, like this whole family got killed. The guy's zipping up children in body bags, and then has to go right to his daughter's recital and put a smile on it. I mean, I get goosebumps. Yeah. I couldn't imagine as a father seeing a daughter or a girl the same age as my kids dealing with that, and then going home and kissing your, like, I get it. I couldn't hide that. I couldn't bottle that up. I'd be a fucking asshole. Like, trying to bury that and deal with that every single day. Like,
well, and it takes a toll, right? And just not affecting your family, because you're bringing that home to your family. 100%. So maybe you're closed up, not talking or not present for them, but also physically. I mean,
wears on you.
Yeah. I mean, cops are known to have high cholesterol, or, and also known to have high divorce rates and, fertility issues and all kinds of stuff, because like I said earlier, the fight or flight response, we're always in fight. We are always in that cortisol level that
it's maxed.
It's maxed. You don't even have that anymore. And so,
and what does that do to your body over time?
Yeah, it messes up with your hormones. It messes up your regulating your emotions, and then that, trickles into your family. And it can trickle into your stops and how you treat your coworkers. And so I definitely think that, yes, there is, maybe that there could be that one asshole cop, because like I've been pulled over and I had an asshole cop that was just so rude and disrespectful, and who knows what he went through that earlier that day. But
nobody thinks of that though.
But I still don't agree. Yeah, and you have to kind of
be a professional.
Yeah, and you put yourself in like the community's shoes, because they can't read your mind and they don't know what your life is like. But also we need more understanding from the community when it comes to what we see every day and what we go through every day and how we keep our chin up and, push through. Because just recently there was a quadruple fatal car versus train. And being from here, I knew the family. And that's the hardest part of the job, is knowing the families. And as a coroner, I knew people that took their own life, and just like, that's the hardest part. Even if I was arresting somebody, or I had my coworker, say they were on a stop arresting somebody and I knew them, that's pretty challenging for me to deal with, because I know them personally and I know that they usually make good decisions, right? Or, now this family is going through this massive heartbreak. And we don't have resources as cops to handle that.
Which blows my mind. It blows my mind that we're in 2024. Our law enforcement officers are treated like shit, looked at like shit. We're trying to defund, and which just blows my mind. Yeah. Well, this country's come up with some really dumb things in the last few years, but like defunding police, like that. Yeah. That's just a whole other like we're at this stage now. Like, who's the first person you're gonna call? All these people that are against it, like the first thing you're going to do, call, and you see them in these videos, call 911. Like, motherfucker, I know you were just out there protesting against these people, so that blows my mind. But and people don't take any of that in consideration. That, like, this, especially in small communities and towns where you're arresting family members, friends. I mean, and then you probably get into the dark side of things, like
human trafficking, sex crimes. Yeah.
Which is
whole other level
of evil.
Yeah.
And then now you're like now you're seeing people for who they really are.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably where cops have, and I don't want to put my foot in my mouth with saying this, but like, not a chip, but like that presence where they just don't want to take any shit because they're dealing with that every day.
I would say like a wall up. I would say guarded.
Guarded for sure. That's a
Yeah.
perfect word. They just, and we're living our little just life, traveling up and down the highway, going to and from practice or shop. And this I mean, who knows what he's already dealt with on his shift. And now here my dumbass comes along and he's like, fuck this guy.
130.
Yeah, right. So, but it's crazy to me how law enforcement officers are, what they have to go through the day in and day out. And then I thought there was all these programs, and I thought there was hundreds of charities that are helping. And then we start getting into it, and these cops are like, I just need to get away. I would like to hang out. And that's the biggest request. And that's what we're going to start doing with our organization is, besides the training, the training that we do for active duty, we're now going to start providing retreats for law enforcement. And the biggest thing that came back, the number one response that we got, if we can provide something, was to be able to go on retreats like clinics or remote trips with law enforcement officers from around the country, because they want to be able to share their experiences, whether the cops were like, well, fuck, what? They're like, I don't, and all these cops are like, I don't know anything. And I'm sure there's organizations out there, but me being so just buried into the veteran community. So we're slowly trying to do this, but we have a couple of rafting trips this year, and we're going to bring out these cops and
Awesome.
Just see how it goes. It's kind of like a tester to see like, why aren't we doing this for law enforcement? And I'll be honest with you, no one gives a shit because it's so hard to raise money for cops. We got to raise money for vets all day. If you're some cat with a third eye and missing a fucking leg, I mean, you can raise so much money all day for kids, pets. Vets is a grind, but law enforcement, people don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care. And we sit there and we're like, fuck, like, what do we do? Like, how do we help when nobody, like, you either are a family member of law enforcement, you're a retired law enforcement, those are who are donating to help cops. And we hardly get anybody. It's like, hey, I just want to help a law enforcement officer. Granted, it's not our biggest program and it's not what our bread and butter is, but I mean, it's out there.
Well, I can't thank you for like grabbing it by the balls and doing something about it, because
you have
to at this point in life that like, so, I think there's not really resources available because, like you said, funding, but it's a political game for the chain of command, right? And that's their priority, not taking care of the boots on the ground and keeping longevity and, preserving their sanity. Yeah. And so, unfortunately, like as a cop, you kind of have this unsaid expectation to like suck it up, buttercup type of thing where,
doesn't work.
Like the vets, the 20-year-old cops have been there. They're like, oh, I went through that. You're fine. Oh, and kind of like pass it off. And, you hear about the different generations and maybe millennials are softer or whatever. However it goes, they're judged by maybe that title instead of just who they are and their work ethic and what they're representing and what's coming out of them. And so you have kind of like the old school mentality and the new school mentality, and it doesn't jive. And then you kind of get a mixture of women in there too, and
which throws a whole other dynamic to everything.
Whole other dynamic. And so, when I was in investigations, I focused on child sex crimes. My counterparts.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I don't know how. I don't even know how to get into this because it's just so disgusting to me.
I won't go into great detail. I promise you.
It is what it is. It's reality, though. And I think that's where a lot of people were missing the boat, is because people aren't seeing the true evil of what's going on with children.
Well, yeah. I mean, in a way, we keep the community naive to what's going on, but at times I believe we should expose it because...
Well, even that, what was that big movie that came out like last year during COVID?
I know what
Hearts of Freedom. Do you know that, Chris? The movie Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom. Yep.
Like even watching that,
and
I watched it with our family, and because I have buddies that are out they're traveling the world trying to catch these guys, right? And so I talk to my kids, and my wife does an incredible job of like, evil just doesn't come from somebody you don't know. Like, I mean, most
Most situations
most
happen.
situation for somebody you know, family, friends, family, things like that. So we've taught our kids that, very on. I trust nobody with my kids. Like, the kids are, but we've taught them good touch, bad touch from a very early age, and a lot of parents don't do that kind of stuff. But when that movie came out, I'm like, hey, we're watching this because I want you to see that I'm not sheltering my kids. I've traveled this world. I've looked fucking evil in its eyes, and I'm not going to expose my kids to that level, but, like, they need to know what's going on.
You don't want them naive.
And we watched that movie, and then, like, I walked out of there, and I was like, I feel like that wasn't enough. Like, they captured some parts of that, but I feel like
it's just the tip of the iceberg.
That's exactly it. Nobody goes into
Yeah.
what these kids and how they're manipulated and groomed and.
But I don't think I could tell you that, even though I've sat and talked to children. I mean, I remember vividly a case of a 16-year-old girl that came to me, and her own father was molesting her for the last 7 years. She knew no different. She thought that was normal.
So it's almost like is it a Munchild syndrome kind of deal? Or no, what is it when you get captured and then they.
Well, and it was her own father, right?
Well, I'm saying, but what is it when they accept, like, when you, like, somebody gets kidnapped and then they end up, like,
becoming.
Not Munchild. That's when you keep your kids sick. What the hell is there's a term for it when you, like, start to, like, accept your capture.
Yeah,
like,
and you become like the child, or and you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So and they just don't know any different because that's all their whole life, and that's all they know.
Yeah, that's all she knew, and.
Something Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm.
What is it? What do I think of this?
Christopher.
I'm looking.
We're not on the Joe Rogan level yet, or we got like we're new.
Seriously,
okay, we're new.
We should.
Yet. That's gonna be Chris's role here in a little bit. Anyways, but so she's been getting molested by her father for 7 years.
Yeah,
before
and
she steps up and says something.
What's super traumatic for this poor girl, and like to this day, obviously I'm not in law enforcement anymore, but to this day, like I have at times desire just to call her and check up on her, because she found out by her friends telling her, no, we don't have sex with our father.
No.
That's not a thing. That's disgusting, whatever. And so she tried to kill herself 3 times.
Oh, God.
And so it was like my main goal is to, so this father was not full-time in her life, and he was also on felony or federal probation, and he lived in California. So long story short, I was able to get him arrested before I had my child, because that was my goal. I didn't want her to go through, and she would do things, like there would be things in that investigation, and I don't know where it is right now, so I don't want to talk too much about it. I'm sure it's been adjudicated, but because it's been several years, but she would try to do things on her own to help my investigation.
As in how?
If it was trying to call her dad and talk to her dad about it, like trying to get him to admit what he did was wrong.
Oh.
Trying to get him to admit and record it and all that. So.
And you're like, no.
And I'm like, you can't do that.
Don't do that.
That is not a thing.
Not helping.
You were so sweet, and I know what you're trying to do, and you're trying to keep yourself above water. But so anyways, that I had several cases. But like I said, I couldn't tell you what she had gone through. There's a wonderful place here called CARES. Have you heard of CARES?
No.
Faces of Hope. They are trained doctors and analysts that really are the only ones trained to talk to children. Because what you have to be super careful with is re-traumatizing children when you talk about what has happened, right? You don't want to ask leading questions because you know about the case. You need them to be forward about what's happening.
Because you can't persuade them to.
Yeah, there's no persuasion. There's no guiding. There's none of that. And so you give them CARES or Faces of Hope, this location, which is very neutral. It has some toys. They just color and just like casually they're amazing. They're remarkable professionals. And so me as a detective would be sitting behind glass, listening and taking notes. And
So they just look like a mom or dad sitting there talking to
Yeah.
them and just having and they just slowly get these kids to open up.
yeah, exactly.
And you're just-
They make them comfortable. They also do sane or safe analyst or analyzing or test, I should say. So it's a sexual assault nurse who are also there that does tests for them if they were just raped or what has happened. They can perform all that there, which is really nice to have that resource here. But honestly, to have people understand is to have, the victims come forward and talk about it, because, I could only imagine, and from what I hear from her, could tell you what she went through, but she could truly tell you what she went through. So when it comes to people, like understanding what we see or hear, or what our victims go through, like it's hearsay until you hear it from a victim, right? So
Yeah. Why aren't our schools teaching more in depth about this stuff? Like, how old was this girl when she found out?
well, she came to me when she was 16. I don't know how old.
Why aren't we why does it take a 16-year-old to not knowing that having sex with your father is not the right thing? Like, why?
Yeah.
How have we failed that much as a I mean, there's pure evil out there. We're gonna deal. It's never gonna go away.
Yeah.
But like, how do we do a better job educating these children on good touch, bad touch? I mean,
Yeah. Well, how do we talk about what people don't want to talk about, which is what you're providing, right? That's why this is phenomenal, is you're exposing these unwanted or maybe not popular conversations because they have to be out there. We shouldn't be
100%.
pushing it under the rug. And so I think the school systems probably do that. I think at time they don't want to educate the unwanted conversation or the conflicting or controversial or however you look at it, right? So people just don't want to.
Because I think about during COVID when they were shutting everything down and how many kids couldn't escape. Because so many kids depend on school, that lunch at school or breakfast, that's all they're eating that day.
Or to be their escape from
Their
what's going on at
escape
their
of
house.
what's going on at home. And that's, to me, was the biggest, most disgusting thing out of COVID was us doing that to the children. I mean, it's an escape from being molested, beat, tortured, starved. I mean, just to get to go to school. And, I mean, you see those kids.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're involved in your kid at all and you go to school and you pick your kid, I mean, you see, like, fuck, there's kids that are, like, I would always tell my wife, there's this one kid, I'm like, how do we help this? And she's like, we can't, babe. I'm like, how do you go to we want to help your child. You just tell, and their hair's never combed and they're always just grungy.
But I always feel like there is a way. Like, even though you can't adopt them or whatever, but maybe you could put money on their cafeteria card and be anonymous, right? Or maybe you see that he has or she has a pretty crummy backpack, and you tell the teacher, I want to gift this backpack. And so it's anonymous or whatever. I always feel like there is a way, and maybe that's just how I was raised, from my situation, that if there's a will, there's a way.
100%.
And you'll make it happen. And so for my investigations, I went to children because I saw, they don't have a voice. They don't have.
Was that kind of like a calling? You felt like you were just pulled in that direction?
Yeah.
So is that when you were a detective, is that what you focused on, was like more the child cases?
So my first year I did whatever came in: homicides, officer involves, cold cases, help with drug cases. But I knew my calling was child crime. And
you're a mom at this point?
No, I'm not a mom yet.
Okay.
So I went to a training put on by the FBI, and they talked about child enticement through the internet. And it was an eye opener. It was like,
scary. This
is incredible, and we need to do this now. And so I went to my sergeant and I said, we should start doing this. And there's an organization here amongst the local agencies that do this, but it's not full time. They're so inundated with child porn cases, like thousands in the hopper, that they just can't keep up. And so learning from the FBI that they do this on individual cases full time. And so I was able to convince my sergeant to allow me to bring that here and do that here. And so I was trained by the FBI Child Enticement Task Force team. They flew here and trained me specifically to do undercover chatting. And so I had a persona as a 13-year-old girl or a 13-year-old boy, and I had several social media platforms, and people are like, oh, you're trying to manipulate it, or you're coaxing people, and it's not even that case. I would literally open an account and I wouldn't do anything, and I would have hundreds and hundreds of men reaching out to me, wanting to meet. And I would have
Is it that blatant that they just, hey?
Some are. Some want to, I mean, they have to meet the elements of the crime. It's a felony. I worked very closely with the state and federal prosecutors, and I had some guys like, hey, you want to go hook up? And they just know you're 13. I had, an undercover picture that looked like a 13-year-old. And they knew, and then I would immediately say, I'm 13 years old. I don't know what that is. They would ask me, would you perform these, sexual positions? Will you send me pictures? They would send me pictures or videos. Sometimes they would send me child porn. And so
you have to watch that.
Yeah.
As the investigator, like you have to go through and see I don't even want to get into that shit, but.
Well, I do. I have a lot of people ask me, like, how and why would I do this, right? And
someone has to.
Well, someone has to. My male counterparts, like yourself, is like, they're infuriated, right? They can't even, they just see red. And for me, I am pregnant at this point. And actually, I did just have my son after being able to start this. I just had my son. And I knew for me that my son's going into this technology. I can't beat it. Like, I grew up with it slowly, but now this is what he will know and see and have peer pressure doing, playing on gaming devices and all this stuff. So if I can try to contribute just a little bit, especially locally, then I'm doing my job.
As a dad or a parent, let's just say a parent in general, how scary is it having your kids on the internet, or access to it?
The most terrifying, gut-wrenching feeling you could ever have.
And this is coming from somebody that lives in that world.
Yeah.
How do you protect your children? Just 100% off the social?
Yeah.
So I have this battle right now because I have about to be 16, and we homeschool, we monitor everything. I have great kids. Everybody says they have great kids, but I'll catch my kids in situations and I try to catch them in a lie, and I'll set them up to fail, and they've never failed.
Wow.
Because we've always, hey, just be honest. So the repercussions are going to suck if you tell me the truth, but they're going to be way worse if I catch you in a lie.
Exactly.
And we'll deal with it accordingly. And there's times where my kids will screw up and I catch them and I ask them straight, and they're like, this is what happened. Cool. You know what? Thank you for being honest. And then they know that trust, right? But I don't even know where I was going with that. It's such a scary world because they have friends. I want her to be able to have relationships and talk to people, but at the same time,
she's going to be 18. She'll move out of the house eventually, right? And so how do you continue to protect her?
Do you shelter 100% and then you send that pure child out into the world and throw them to the lion's den? Or, what are our options?
Well,
especially in a world full of technology, and you have AI, which is created by the devil itself.
Yeah.
Now that they can take a picture of your child and AI it onto an AI
OnlyFans, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
That's that.
Yeah. Honestly,
where do we go? Where do we, as a parent, and parents listening, because I get a lot of dads that reach out and they're always asking advice, especially a girl dad, and what advice would take them off of it? My kids aren't sneaky, but I have buddies that their kids. I didn't even know you can go into an app and change the image of the app.
Yeah.
So they're hiding apps, and it just looks like a calculator now.
Right. It's called a chamber. Yeah.
So you're like, motherfuckers ain't getting shit on me. Like that
my
is
son.
Yeah.
Poor son.
Yeah, God help that kid.
Son, yeah.
Yeah, mom and dad are gonna have him on lockdown.
Yeah.
But where is there even a happy medium, or is it an absolute no? If you don't want me asking this, how are you going to raise your son with this technology, knowing what you know and seeing because we don't see what you're seeing, which is on a whole different level of just horrible things. So
honestly, how we're raising our son, like I said, you can't beat the technology. And also, you think about what they're using in college, and some people have remarkable Elon Musk, right? Amazing careers that are based on technology. And so it doesn't have to be viewed as the devil, but there needs to be boundaries. And so I think of like gaming platforms, Nintendo, Xbox, all those, whatever system that has messengers that other people can talk to, they can talk to their buddies, then bad guys can talk to them too, right? And so monitoring that, or parental restrictions, and educating them, this doesn't need to be a secret. Your kids need to know the dark side.
I think that's the biggest problem, is that parents want to shelter their kids, in which we're the opposite. And I guess we'll know in 20 years when my kids come to me and they're like, "Dad, you fucked us up," or "Mom, you guys,"
doubt it.
Highly doubt it. We are a very open family, and we want our kids knowing what's going on in the world, the trends, what's happening. And I feel a lot of parents from day one, they never get out of the baby child stage, and they continue to raise their children like that. And that's how you end up with these shitty kids with horrible traits, but they're not exposing them, or they're just lazy parents that aren't involved in their children's life, and they're just letting an iPad raise their children. And I don't know the saying, I heard it not too long ago, but when you give your kids electronics, you're not opening them up to the world, you're opening the world to them.
Yep.
And then when you hear that, you're like, holy shit, it's true, because I mean,
the vulnerability, a whole different level.
And these guys are they're so good now. I feel like they can get into anything and have an avenue to your child. And you hear about these kids that are these girls, and they grew up in a Christian home and straight A students, valedictorian, and then they get caught, they get pulled into it. And now it's, I mean, these kids are, I just heard this story my wife was telling me about, one of her little crime shows. This kid killed himself because he got catfished by, now they're getting these teenage boys to send pictures, and they think they're talking to some beautiful girl, and then now they're blackmailing these kids and bullying. These kids are killing themselves because they send pictures, and now they're getting posted.
Yeah, awful. But you can't, I mean, I've seen both ways, right? So I grew up in a more open home, very, we discussed everything if we wanted to, kind of thing, and a lot of respect and a lot of trust. And then I've seen friends that had, if they did one little wrong thing, the door was off the hinges, and they would go even more extreme and sneak out, and drug and sex was all that they knew at that point. And so the fine line, I think, is just communicating it, talk about it. It's, educating them, because I didn't know about this type of thing back in high school. And, I think it's what our generations need to know at this point to protect them.
Especially as technology evolves. And that kind of goes back to my question, why are we not, you think this would be a program in school, hey.
Yeah.
This is the trends. This is how